Welcome back to Buckeyes Real Analysis, Episode 2, October 21st, 2025. The Buckeyes just finished their seventh game of the year against the Wisconsin Badgers, winning that game 34-0. The next game on the schedule is November 1st against the Penn State Nittany Lions. With this bye week, we thought it would be interesting to look at some of the strategic and tactical changes the Ohio State Buckeyes, and elite teams for that matter, are making in this new world that college football resides in, the FBS playoff universe. A lot of these elite teams that are expected to be in their conference championship plus the playoffs are taking a bit of a different approach to the regular season that we saw, some time ago. Uh, that is, the offensive teams are slowing down their pace of play. No one, I would say, as dramatically as the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes, I believe, are averaging about 62 plays a game so far this year through 7 games. Last year, they averaged about 70. That difference over 12 regular season games is just under 100 plays, which is close to 2 full games under this year's pace of play average. Um, a lot of the other teams that are considered elite are seeing similar declines. To give you a bit of a perspective, that's those 60 game plays is about 15 to 20 plays less a game than what we saw before the 14 playoff that started in 2014, which the Buckeyes also won. Um, so now, why are we seeing this? Why are we seeing this slowdown in the pace of play? And does it come with rewards? And does it come with risks? Some of the rewards are obvious. That is, if you're going to play fewer games, your high risk plays obviously are going down, and your risk to injury is going down. Perhaps you're also helping specifically your offensive line out with fatigue. There's when you effectively take away 2 games, and you need to win roughly 15 to 16 games to win that championship. Uh, saving those 2 games with fewer plays really can be impactful um, at the end of the year. Um, there's also some other we could look into some other reasons why Ryan Day is choosing to slow down the game so dramatically. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, Ohio State was 70th in offensive play average last year. Uh, I believe there's 135 or 136 teams in the FBS. This year, they have taken that pace all the way down to being the 132nd ranked team in terms of offensive plays in the country. That is a dramatic decrease. Uh, is it? Uh, is it a? I mean, it's clearly a tactical decision. Their strategy is to win the national championship every single year, just like some of the other elite teams. Their strategy is to win it all every year. That is the goal. So how do you get there with these offensive tactics, defensive tactics, and in this case, game management and team management tactics? Uh, Obviously, you're reducing your risk of injury, but another very interesting corollary that arises with reducing the number of plays is every play in each game has more weight than it used to, which means the team has to execute and focus better during the game because they're getting fewer opportunities to put points on the board. They got to be efficient. They got to operate at a very, very, very elite and well conditioned and practiced level. I think a lot of people are overlooking that fact. If you used to play 70 plays and now you're playing 60 plays, well, that's effectively, one or two drives that you're handing over to the other team, which means the drives that you have now, you better darn well score. That's it's a big risk. Um, but again, there's another reward to that. You are offering fewer variety, much less variety in the game for potential film study by your opposing teams that are also expected to make it to the playoffs. You will be showing them less. So there's a benefit there. But then, there's also a risk to playing fewer games. Um, there's nothing like game time play and pushing yourself in those 55th minute, 60th minute, perhaps even into overtime for end of season conditioning. You got to know if you can dig deep and complete a game, if that's what it's coming down to at the end of the year. Uh, we saw the Buckeyes lose to Michigan last year. They played a very, very slow game again. They had been doing that all season last year. And you miss a drive here and there, and you're basically handing the game over to a lesser squad. Now, is that a big deal anymore in terms of pride? Sure, it's a big deal. Everybody wants to win the game. Everybody wants to beat Michigan. Everybody wants to beat your rival. Alabama always wants to beat Georgia uh, or Auburn or Tennessee. They don't want to be losing to those guys. But with these playoffs, obviously those rivalries have been devalued, and it's more important to get back to your strategy. Your strategy is not to beat your rival. Your strategy is to win the national championship by implementing tactics such as game and time and play management, the way Ryan Day and Kirby Smart and Kalen down at Alabama are all taking. But I got to admit, no one's taking it to this extreme like the Buckeyes are. Uh, got to hand it to Ryan Day prepping his teams and having them ready week in and week out. This year's team has been a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. The foolish penalties are down. The execution is second to none, to be honest. Um, and his emphasis on the importance of every game, every play, every drive. You got to get better. You got to get better, and you got to be right. You don't want to be missing a beat midway through the season and reducing your chances of making those playoffs. But this seems to be the approach that they're taking. Um, they are at 132nd for the season. Um, it's worked last year. They opened the playbook a little bit in those playoffs and just absolutely steamrolled everybody. Even you can say even the Texas game could have got really out of hand if it wasn't for that foolish penalty by Travion on that second or third drive that killed that drive at midfield. I mean, Texas had not stopped Ohio State to that point. I mean, if you get down 2, 3 scores that early, that could have demoralized that Longhorns team, and you would have seen perhaps a different outcome than what we saw. It wouldn't have been. It didn't end up being close, but it was the scoreboard was a lot closer, obviously, than what it ended up being. The game was ended, being a lot closer than what the scoreboard showed, I should say. But these other teams that aren't slowing their pace down, uh, perhaps maybe they're overlooking something. Maybe Ryan Day saw something that made sense to him, and I should have kept my mouth shut and not blabbed it out to the rest of the world. But I can't believe that no one else has not taken notice to this very material offensive scheme change that the Buckeyes are implementing this year. I mean, 60 games, 60 plays a game. Uh, I mean, in that kind of a situation, you see why Julian Saint's 80%, 80 plus percent completion rate is paramount. And the fact that the receivers, like, this kind of goes in hand with what Julian Saint's doing, but the receiver's not dropping a ball and protecting the ball. There's been a few turnovers, but there really haven't been that many turnovers this year, and you see how that's playing out. Um, with the final scores. For the most part, the Buckeyes are covering the spread, and the spreads have tightened. And I think the bookies, the odds makers, have taken notice of that the Buckeyes are running less plays, and obviously they're going to put up less points. But the fact that they're still covering, um, I know that perhaps the teams they've played so far aren't uh, probably the best in the country, but to be covering consistently and to be shutting everybody out and to be running at a high efficiency, you got to hand it to Ryan Day and his coaching staff. This is about as good a coaching performance as anyone has ever seen. I know that the Buckeyes have 20 NFL guys on their team, but that doesn't change the fact that uh, you got to have these guys ready and executing at a supremely high level. Because when you take away 10 plays, and that's just relative to last year, and if you take away 15 to 16 plays relative to where you were 10 years ago, uh, every play and every drive matters.